Leeroy.
Good afternoon, everyone. We hope that you're all safe and healthy. We would like to welcome you all on our 10th Career Orientation, Mentoring and Program Advising Series, or COMPAS. COMPAS We hope that you're all safe and healthy. We would like to welcome you all on our 10th Career Orientation, Mentoring and Program Advising Series, or COMPAS. COMPAS is one of Academic Affairs Office new initiatives to adapt to the changing learning landscape. This is to ensure that our students would still have the same quality of education and continuous learning. COMPAS is a series of featured interviews from respective industry experts from different disciplines. They will share their journey to success, from the reason why they chose their college degree and to how it affected their current career. Our speaker for today is Mr. Leeroy New. He is a Manila-based multidisciplinary artist whose practice overlaps and intersects with different creative industries like installation, sculpture, fashion, production design, filmmaking, costuming, and performance. This inclination to harness different modes of creative production has become the spine of his practice, driven by concepts of world building, hybrid myth making, and social change. He is a visual arts graduate of the Philippine High School for the Arts and a graduate of University of the Philippines. He is a visual arts graduate of the Philippine High School for the Arts and a graduate of University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts. Mr. Leeroy has worked on immersive, psychedelic, and arresting installations all over New York, Paris, LA, Singapore, Japan, Taipei, Sydney, Thailand, and Belgium. Among his notable collaborations and projects, he made a sculpted silicone bustier for Lady Gaga that appears in the Marry the Night music video. He also had a solo show at the Pinto International in New York in March 2019 that was featured in Art News, ArtNet, Brooklyn Rail, and amongst others. His works were also exhibited at the PDNE at the Nomad Hotel in Los Angeles in May 2019. His works were also exhibited at the Palais de Tokyo in Paris in June 2019. He was part of the Singapore Biennale in 2008 and Fukuoka Asian Art Triennale in 2009. He was a recipient of the CCP 13 Artist Award in 2012, Ateneo Art Awards in 2018, and Asian Cultural Council Residency in New York in 2015. This year, Mr. Leeroy has been selected as one of the artists to create an installation for the next Burning Man Festival in Nevada, USA. Without further ado, Let us now all hear and welcome Mr. Leeroy New.
Hello? Ito na ba? Hello, everyone. Di ko kayo nakikita, pero sige, I'll pretend that you're in front of me. Yeah, we're all relatively new to this online talk platform, kahit ako. So we'll just push through this. I've prepared a sort of a presentation for you today. It's really just a series of photographs that of my works and some images that might be helpful to tell the story. A little introduction about myself and mostly about my process and how my work progressed into different platforms and creative industries. So, okay, I'll just go ahead and start. The first image that you're looking at right now was the type of art that I saw back in General Santos City. I'm originally from General Santos City, south of the Philippines. If you know where Jensen is, it's pretty much at the bottom of the archipelago. Basta nandun siya sa bandang baba. Tapos, ito yung panahon na walang internet. So, I had to really look for any type of art that was present in that place during that time. So ito yung mga type ng art na nakikita ko nung bata ako, nung lumalaki ako sa Jensen. Siguro hindi nga ganito kadami, mga 10 lang siguro sa isang mall namin, yung maliit na mall namin doon na nakakalat sa isang communal area doon. So they were images of bahay kubo, people farming, farmlands, yan, yung mga kabayang tumatakbo, mga still lifes, bulaklak. So this was my idea of what art was back then. And this was the type of art that I wanted to do. I wanted to emulate and replicate these paintings. No? Next slide, please. Can we move on to the next image? Okay. So yan. Back in 1994, kita nyo, I was a big fan of vegetables. So yun, ito yung mga ginagawa ko nung Nutrition Month poster making contest. Yun yung mga art fair namin nung panahon na yun. Masaya na kami noon eh. Yun yung pinaka, yun yung mga art events nung panahon namin nung bata kami. So ayan, as you can see, I tried to replicate the paintings that I saw, and these what I thought was art back then. No, so next slide, please. Yan. So medyo may lag lang, no? So bear with us. So what you have here is a work by one of my professors when I entered Philippine High School for the Arts. So nung nasa Jensen ako, I learned about this school called Philippine High School for the Arts through my mom's friend. Kinuwento sa amin, tapos syempre na-chika sa nanay ko. Alam nung kaibigan ng mom ko na mahilig ako mag-drawing at mag-painting, mga ganyan. At kaya sinuggest nung kaibigan ng mom ko sa kanya na subukan naming pumasok sa school na to. So, Philippine High School for the Arts is located in Mount Makiling. So, you take a test, no? Talent test to see if you get in. So, sa awa ng Diyos, nakapasok ako. I got in. So, nung pagpapunta ko dun sa Makiling, sa Philippine High School for the Arts, Siyempre, galing ako Jensan, medyo conservative yung upbringing. Yun yung mga lugar na hindi ka pwedeng hindi ka pwedeng sumagot-sagot or magsalita. Kahit sagot lang, kahit ano lang, respectable na sagot. Ang tingin nila ay sumasagot ka. So medyo ano lang kami doon, shy type ako ng time na yun. I think most of the kids were kept to themselves, medyo tahimik. Pero pag pasok ko ng Philippine High School for the Arts, medyo na culture shock ako ng matindi. Kasi medyo iba nga yung kultura na yon, medyo creative yung atmosphere, mas maraming allowed, no? In terms of sa paggawa at pag-iisip. Kahit yung sight of boys with long hair nung time na yon, nung bata ko, I think I was 12. Medyo shocking na yung image na yon. Na, pwede palang mga lalaki na mag-grow ng hair. Kasi doon ko na-realize na medyo sobrang conservative pala ng General Santos. Tapos, yun, I had to unlearn and relearn a lot of things. You know? Sige, let's move on to the next slide. Habang nag-aantay tayo, itong image na to, itong mga sticks na yan, may mga chinelas dyan sa taas. Gawa yan ng isang professor ko, naging teacher ko sa Makiling noong time na yon, si Alfredo Aquilisan. Gawa niya rin to, mga sweater na ginawang what appears to be female genitalia. Next slide, please. Yan. So, medyo unti-unti, ito na yung na-expose na ako sa iba't ibang paraan ng paggawa ng art. Kasi nung nasa Jensen ako, yung mga paintings na tulad nung kanina, yun ang nakikita ko. Tapos ito, gawa rin ng isang naging teacher ko sa Makiling, si Jerry Leonardo, gumagawa ng mga kinetic sculptures. Giant monumental kinetic sculptures, mga fiberglass human figures. Next image, please. At ito naman, yung thesis advisor ko sa school na yon, si Roberto Fileo. Gumagawa naman siya ng mga large-scale, life-size, intricate sculptures using, ito ang nakikita niyo dito, using primarily sawdust, no? Sawdust mixed with adhesive to create these very intricate sculptures that refer to Filipino lore, mythologies, pop culture, history. Next image, please. So, ako, nung nakita ko na, wow, ito ba ang art? Ito yung ginagawa ng mga teachers ko eh. So, parang medyo nabulabog yung aking isipan na ang art, ang daming paraan na pwedeng gumawa ng art. So yun pa lang, nabasag na yung konsepto ko ng art as painting at art as drawing. At I wanted to try all of these different techniques and methods and strategies of making art. So ito yung thesis ko nung sa Philippine High School for the Arts. Syempre, manghang-mangha ako sa mga teachers ko nung panahon na yon. So, may bilang estudyante na namamangha sa kanyang mga teachers, sinubukan kong gumawa ng sarili kong version ng nakikita ko at napag-aralan ko doon. So, gumawa ako ng mga 3 sculptures. Ito, mga 3 sculptures to na gawa sa halo ng concrete, paper pulp, at PVC pipes, no? So, doon namulat ako sa konsepto ng installation art and spatial constructions, yung space as konteksto para sa trabaho, sa art, human interactivity, mga interactive pieces, no? Next slide, please. So, ito yung ginawa ko. Medyo spatial installation siya where people can actually go in and out of. They're definitely taller than your average person to provide the feel of kind of like a forest, no? A small portion of a forest. Nakapag-next slide na ba tayo? Ayun, okay. So, ito naman, nung gumraduate ako sa Philippine High School for the Arts, tinuloy ko yung aking exploration sa spatial installations. Itong nakikita nyo ngayon ay, yung mga tinik na yon ay paper sculptures, no? Paper mache sculptures na tinry kong i-replicate yung textures ng isang kuweba, yung stalactite and stalagmite. So yun, medyo tinuloy-tuloy ko yung pag-explore ko sa iba't ibang paraan ng paggawa ng sculptures. So kita nyo, ang layo na dun. Medyo lumayo na ako dun sa fruits and vegetables nung Nutrition Month poster making contest back in 1994 ba yun? Nakasulat doon. Okay, next slide na tayo. So nung pagpasok ko nung college, nag-UP Fine Arts ako. Nung panahon na yon, nakita namin na ang daming ginagawang MMDA art. Naalala nyo ba yon or hindi na? Basta nung time na yan, siguro mga 2001 or 2002, mga 2002, 2000. Wait, no. Hindi, mga na pala, 2005 or 2006. Pinauso ng MMDA art yung kanilang mga colorful geometric art daw na So kami, nung mga kaklase ko nung college, medyo impatient kami, no? We wanted to do work, we wanted to do shows, we were proposing to galleries already, pero syempre yung mga sagot ng mga galleries sa amin, might be too early, come back when you're famous, or understandable naman na but it may have seemed to them that we were still too fresh, no? At baka we were just still eager to explore more. So we understood, okay, walang problema, but also we realized na may mga iba't ibang paraan para gumawa at magpresenta ng trabaho. Next slide, please. So itong ginawa ng MMDA art, habang may momentum nung panahon na yon, niisip namin i-hijack yung ine-establish nilang paraan ng pagpresenta ng creative ideas, or in this case, painting in the street painting. Yeah, let's wait for the next image. Medyo mabagal lang yung lag. Oops. Parang may na-miss tayong image. So, ito, sige, tuloy-tuloy na lang natin yung pag-move sa mga sunod na images. Ito, sinimulan namin sa UP. Isa kong kaibigan, inisip namin, we can always present our works on public structures, on public spaces. Hindi kailangan antayin natin yung permission ng gallery spaces, no? Ng art sanctioned spaces. Sige, next. So ito yung mga naka-scatter na mga structures sa UP at inisip namin ng kaibigan ko na pitan kaya natin to. So casually pininturahan namin. Kunwari gabi, minsan gabi pa kami nagpinta pero naisip namin mas suspicious pag gabi kami nagpipinta. So nagpipinta kami in broad daylight sa UP tapos sabihin lang namin art project ko ng fine art. Tapos kapag may nagtatanong, tapos yun na, tapos na. Alis na sila. So, minsan, diskarte lang din talaga eh. Nakapag-next na ba tayo? So, ayun. Ito rin yata yung panahon na we came across these magazines about street art, lowbrow art culture. At so dito parang ipinapakita na yung struggle ng artists to reclaim spaces for creative production, no? Bakit hindi yung mga public spaces natin ay gawing rin okasyon para ipakita ang mga creative ideas na to or artistic expression. Next slide na ba tayo?
Sir Leeroy, I think Miss MJ is having technical difficulties at her end po regarding the PowerPoint presentation,
okay.
Sir.
Sige lang.
Sige, sir.
Go na ba ulit?
Yes, sir. I think you can proceed, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Sige. Next slide na rin tayo para so ito one of the structures that we painted on. You'll notice nung time na yan medyo nahilig ako dito sa mga drippy images ng mga characters na ginagawa ko. So yun, from random water tanks to sa mga poste na na-encounter namin, papuntang building namin. Tapos, ayun, bilang sculpture major, tinry kong i-replicate itong mga drippy forms sculpturally, from wall pieces to something architectural like this one. A friend of mine, invited me to design the facade of their building. Tapos ako, dahil fresh grad ako, tanggap lang ako ng tanggap kahit na medyo challenging para sa akin. At kahit wala masyadong TF, halos materials budget lang yung nakuha ko din para dito. But for me, medyo naisip ko ang importante nung time na yun is for me to be able to do work, no? To be able to show what I can do and to build my body of work then. Next image, please. So this store was located in Cubao Expo. It was back in 2008 probably. Tapos yung mga dripping forms, itong image na to ngayon, if you're familiar with UP, when you enter UP, may mag-greet sa inyo na two shed structures, no, na patuli, na disenyo ni national artist Napoleon Abueva. So for my thesis, next slide, binalutan ko yung isang side ng spandex at pinasukan ko ng mga giant bean bags para ma-disrupt yung symmetry. Kasi yung original structure, eto, medyo clean lines, angular, modernist. Tapos ang ginawa ko, dinisrupt ko yung pagiging geometric structure niya, rigid geometric structure into something more organic, more, para sa akin, more current, no? Bilang sanay tayo ngayon sa mga soft forms because of the digital space. Medyo nagbabago yung ating sensibility for forms and shapes dahil nga sa technological advancement of the digital space. Mas maraming forms na posible. Okay, next.
Sir Leeroy?
Yes?
Hi, sir. I think you can try to access the, you can next the PowerPoint, sir. Miss MJ said that you have access po in controlling the slides.
All right. Sige. I'll check.
Because she's having technical difficulties at her end po.
Sige. Yun. That's me. Ako ba yan?
Sir, can I ask you a question regarding your thesis po in UP?
Sure, go ahead.
Sir, how did you ask permission to do that thesis po on a national artist's work, sir?
Well, as part of my thesis project, I had to come up with the proper letters of seeking permission. So, syempre, pinuntahan ko si national artist Napoleon Abueva. At bilang, medyo open siya sa mga ganitong bagay, pumayag naman siya at pinirmahan niya yung permission letter, which I coursed through the UP administration at pumayag naman sila lahat. Everyone involved in taking care of that structure and that space. At saka, dahil temporary intervention lang naman siya, fabric lang naman din yung gamit ko, wala namang mangyayari doon sa structure itself. So the image you're looking at now is, eto, bumalik tayo. Next slide na po tayo. Yung kanina. So, kita nyo kung paano nag-evolve yung aking images, no? From dripping, yung mga dripping characters ko, yung parang natutunaw sa naging blob na structure na space. Ito naman sa Singapore Biennale noong 2008. Yung blob naging part siya ng isang tableau, no, with aliens and the UFO sa likod. Yung parang UFO-like structure sa likod, that's the new Supreme Court building in Singapore. So, nung pinapili nila ako ng lugar para kung saan ako gagawa ng installation, natuwa ako dito sa corner na to kasi mukhang may kwento. At eto, tinuloy ko yung kwento. Parang may alien invasion na nagaganap. Next slide, please. Sige. Mag-next, ganito na lang, every 10 seconds siguro, mag-next na lang tayo ng image. Tapos, para tuloy-tuloy na lang. Alright, so ito, yung trabaho ko sa Fukuoka. Yung blob form naging creature. Ito, sa harap ng Fukuoka Asian Art Museum, tuwang-tuwa ako kasi, nakalipad yung aking blob creature from blob environment, naging character siya. Tapos sa Japan, 'di ba, mahilig sila sa mga malalaking monsters. So ito parang spaceship creature monster yung ginawa ko. Pero may pinanggalingan niya pa rin yung blob series ko. Ayan, makikita nyo sa harap ng yung laki ng trabaho. So this was the year right after nung Singapore Biennale na trabaho. So I've never done anything like this before, yung sa Singapore at dito. So syempre, kabadong-kabado ako noon. Pero syempre hindi naman ako makahindi kasi ang ganda ng opportunity na presenta sa akin eh. Sige, kahit wala akong kaalam-alam dyan. So after college, I did all sorts of other jobs then. Itong picture na nakikita nyo, that's me doing production design for the film of my friend. Thesis, ito yung first film niya, kakagraduate niya lang din sa film school nung time na to. Tapos, yun, as production designer, part of the job is you design pretty much anything, no? From everything. You design the scene, you design the props, the costumes, you have a say in the costumes. Tapos dito, production design sa Pilipinas, medyo challenging kasi you have to do everything yourself. Ako na nga nag-design, ako pa nagpipinto na sarili ko sa punong yon. Pero dahil bata ako noon, kaya game lahat, attack lahat. So learning experience lahat for me. This was the scene for the tree that I painted. And this is another scene where we were allowed to cut banana trees kasi medyo may reference to aswang, no? To the aswang stories yung pelikulang yon. May kwento na yung mga aswang kaya nilang mag-transform or tumago as banana trees. So ito yung eksenang to na medyo grim kung inisip mo yung reference na yon. So using simple techniques, you can create an interestingly haunting image. In this case, we had a lot of spare banana trees. On top of my work as a production designer for film, pero that was just occasional, no? I did, parang every now and then I do film. Ito naman theater. I made costumes for Tanghalang Filipino. This was a musical that they staged at the CCP. It's something close to my heart kasi it's about mythology, folklore, monsters, fantastical creatures. Ito yung mga pinapanood ko nung bata ako. Ito yung mga gusto kong gawin. Ito yung mga tuwang-tuwa ako sa mga horror movie o kaya sa mga fantasy o sci-fi. Tuwing may pinapakitang bagong halimaw, bagong spaceship, o bagong alien. So doon ko na-realize na parang you can make your own rules when it comes to imagining worlds, creatures, characters, architecture, planets, yun, mga ganon. So these are all from the same musical, characters from more mythological characters. So Ibalong is a Bicolano epic. At nakakatuwa kasi ang daming iba't ibang characters, no? So ito may giant boar puppet character, tapos isang serpent woman character. Tapos, madali para sa akin yung transition ko from sculpture major to working with wearable pieces. Kasi nung nasa Makiling kami, isa sa mga basic exercises for sculpture namin is mask making. And with mask making, meron kang consideration of the human body. So it was easy and natural for me to be able to apply what I know in sculpture over the human body. You know, I was able to consider the human form, and how material can and how sculptural elements can transform the anatomy of the human body. Next na po. So, ayun. Okay. So, kung naalala niyo yung mga dripping characters ko nung una, nung nagsi-street art kami, parang naisip ko, bakit di ko kaya gawing 3D o kaya wearable yung idea ng dripping forms. So ito, sinubukan ko. I sculpted it on a mannequin. Tapos, I casted it using silicone. And ito, tapos, I worked with mga mananahe to attach the sequence, no? So, medyo madugo siyang proseso. Pero, ayun, parang nagsimula lang sa pagsama ko ng dalawang basic ideas. Diba? So, gumagawa ako ng mga soft organic forms already eh. At nakikipag-collaborate ako with performance artists. Ang mga kaibigan kong taga-teatro, dancers, mga aktor, or performance artists. So madali, parang no-brainer for me to fuse the two things together. So this is an image that I collaborated with photographer friends of mine. Tapos I continue to explore different materials, no? So on top of the form, meron kang idea for the form, syempre i-consider mo rin yung material na ginagamit mo. Tapos itong particular material na nakikita nyo, parang elastic siya na silicone. Tapos, ayan. So from that seed of an idea of the elasticity of a material, napunta kami dito, no? So I wanted I was using rubber latex, and applying it directly on the skin. When it dries and you peel it away from the skin, it looks like this. This is the result. So these are all just experiments na I had an idea of what they could be, but syempre hindi ako sure. But I had to do it. I had to try it out, and if the result was interesting, I'd make more experiments out of it. I'd make little variations. Like in this case, I applied paint to the rubber latex to make it look red. And nilagyan pa namin ng mga diamante. And then the way I work is, pag meron akong idea on a small scale, bakit di pwede gawing malaki? From an object, I would move to architectural concerns. Like, what if I applied the latex on a huge wall? Tapos ito, that's me pulling the rubber latex off the wall. Kailangan ko na ng tulong dito kasi medyo malaki na at medyo mahirap na yung Tapos ito yung sa CCP. From a human body to the architectural interiors of a space. Yan. So, kita niyo yung difference in scale. So, medyo ganun yung naging internal process ko, no? So, if I find a form that's interesting, magbabago kasi if iniba mo yung scale, eh. Tapos, pagkatapos nun, i-incorporate ko yung human element. Since I work closely with movers and dancers, immediately iniisip ko na paano kaya nila mapaglaruan to. So in this particular case, they were peeling the rubber latex off using their bodies. So I would create the physical conditions. Eto, tulad nito sa labas ng CCP, preparing for another physical intervention. Yan. So the next image would be my friends and collaborators, peeling the latex off using their own bodies. So nagiging occasion siya for new movements, no? Tapos, yun, nag-evolve yung idea, eh. So there's always something you can do after, no? That you wanna try na hindi mo nagawa sa last time na pinaglaruan mo. So ngayon, todo full body na ang ginawa namin. Tapos, eto. So next image naman, material naman, no? So cable ties, for example. How can you maximize a specific material to transform how it relates to, your practice? So from a single suit, gumawa ako nitong landscape version. So basically, cable ties lang siya, yung zip ties na pinagdidikit-dikit ko. So ito yung mga early explorations to, eh. And then with that zip tie, what happens if I introduce a different material? So in this case, may nakuha akong mga discarded water pipes from the recycling center. Ginawa sa isang residency to sa Australia. So binisita namin yung recycling centers, marami silang mga tubo-tubo. So yung mga tubo na yon, pinagtatahi ko using cable ties. Tapos, nagmukha siyang balete para sa akin. So, tinawag ko siyang balete. Pag naalala niyo yung balete, yung mga ugat-ugat na bumabalot sa sa existing tree, no? Kasi the balete tree starts out as a kind of vine and wraps itself around an existing tree hanggang sa mamatay yung tree na pinagbalutan at ang nagpalit sa kanya yung balete. So, ito, ginawa namin sa Ateneo. At yung mga pipes na nakikita ko sa Divisoria na mura ay yung mga orange flexible conduits na ginagamit sa mga kuryente. Tapos yun, nag-weave lang ako for 10 to 12 days dito sa harap ng Rizal Library sa Ateneo. Hanggang sa naubusan ako ng pipes. Tapos yun, medyo umabot naman ako sa 3rd floor. Tapos ito, so parang medyo may halong performance siya kasi araw-araw ako dyan nag-weave. So unti-unti nakikita ng mga estudyante, lumalaki yung installation na yan. Tapos itong mga pictures na to, mga pinapadala sa akin ng mga kaibigan ko na, uy, kita mo, kung pinapasok nila ulo ng mga estudyante sa yung mga butas ng installation mo. So, nagiging interactive yung trabaho. Nagiging organically interactive tuwing pinaglalaroan ng mga taong nag-i-inhabit ng space na yon, yung trabaho mo. And that is what I was going for. That's why I build these installations in places where people can actually encounter them, no? And in a way, these installations, they disrupt the routine of those spaces. Yung mga kinasanayan ng mga nag-i-inhabit ng space na yun ng mga tao. So ito naman sa Bonifacio Global City. So medyo tagal na rin itong mga trabahong to no? Gumawa ako ng alien landscape. So in this case, hindi siya nakabalot sa isang structure, sa isang existing structure. Gumawa kami ng mga sarili naming structures. Tinry namin i-transform yung empty lot na yan using those tentacles na similar dun sa Ateneo, pero inilawan namin this time to see the effect, the difference in the effect. So again, if I discover a new way of making something, yun yung ginagawa ko. Gagawa ko ng mga maliliit na objects, gagawin kong large scale, at gagawin kong wearable. So in this case, what you see now are the wearable versions of the technique that I used for those balete installations. So this is the group that I constantly work with, Sipatlawin Ensemble. They do guerrilla performances, community theater, a lot of, interesting explorations in performance. So again, kasi sayang ang dami kong maraming mga tira-tirang objects gagamitin namin para sa mga experiments yan. So ito naman ay bamboo structure, bamboo spaceship na ginawa sa Paway Sand Dune. So inimbita ako ng local government para gumawa ng large-scale bamboo installation na inspire sila sa Burning Man. If you Google Burning Man Festival or Burning Man, makikita mo doon ang lalaki ng mga installations na ginagawa nila sa gitna ng disyerto. Yan. Yun ako kanina, nasa tuktok, parang unggoy. So, ito, nakakailang bamboo spaceships na rin kami. Tapos, marami pa akong gustong gawing bamboo spaceships. Hindi pa ako nakakontento. Practice pa lang itong mga nauna. Masaya siya kasi physical siya, nakakatrabaho ko sa mga iba't ibang lugar, mga interesting na lugar. Tapos, napakasarap na material ang bamboo para gamitin. At marami tayong bamboo. So, ang daming pwedeng gawin dun sa bamboo natin, no? Medyo eco-friendly pa siya kasi sustainable ang growth ng bamboo. Medyo one of the fastest growing, well, it's a grass technically, di ba? So medyo mabilis yung growth nito. At we can easily come up with a bamboo sculpture park in the Philippines if we wanted to. Dami-dami nating resort nagawa sa bamboo. Bakit hindi ito? So ito, ano yan, pwedeng akyatin ng mga tao tong structures na to. Kita niyo yung scale ng tao sa ilalim. Mga bata, tumatakbo. Yan, paakyat sila dyan. Parang may lag ba?
Yes, sir. I think we're experiencing technical difficulties again. Sir, question, how many days were you able to finish this artwork po in the Pawai Sand Dunes?
These are different structures, yung mga images na pinakita ko. Siguro 2 weeks. Kaya siya in 2 weeks, but with a team of 15 to 20 people.
Oh, I see, sir. So, matrabaho po talaga siya, sir, no?
So, depende din. So, syempre yung mga variables is time, materials, manpower. Iba-iba yung resulta, depende sa resources na meron ka.
I see, sir. And I think the presentation is back online, sir.
Sige. Next lang tayo. So, ito naman ay isang installation na itinayo namin sa Boracay para dun sa APEC conference. Noong 2015 yata ito. Tapos, installation siya, performance space din siya at the same time. So, ito yung sinasabi kong masarap gumawa sa iba't ibang lugar. So, halos 2 linggo kami dito nasa Boracay. Tinatayo itong installation na to 2 beses at sa 2 magkaibang location. Ang gamit naman namin dito ay mga industrial tubes at mga iba't ibang klaseng hose, no? Gardening hose, rubber hose. And the forms resemble marine life. Next image na po tayo.
Sir, I think the PowerPoint presentation is back online, sir.
Okay. So, what did we miss? Medyo nag-skip tayo, no? Okay lang. So, this is an example of my other projects. So, the image that you see before you now is rendering of what we wanted to do for the Pasig River. May plano kami ng aking collaborator na si Julian Nebrija, who is an urban planner and urban designer. I wanted to create this interactive island. An island that served as a performance space, public garden, and floating sculpture. Next, please. Yan. So this is the prototype that we were able to produce. Tapos, yun. Ito naman ay isang rendering of a... ganito lang ako mag-render eh. Medyo very quick lang, rough sketch. Kasi alam kong ang daming pwedeng mangyari dun sa actual construction. So these really are just like very rough sketches for the benefit of the people that I'm working with. Para medyo gets nila sa utak nila yung ano nangyayari. Pero usually ako, I can do it directly. Parang tulad ng mga bamboo structures, wala na kaming mga floor plan o kaya mga detailed technical plans. It's more like sculpting in space. Parang lagay ng poste dito, lagay poste dyan, yan, ganun. Next. So these are just samples of the renderings. And this is the actual work, no? This is a drone shot. That's me on the left side, yung brown na yon, nandun sa patulis. Ako yan. So kita niyo yung scale nung installation na to. So these are all bamboo, tapos walang mga floor plan. It's really just like constructing in real time, sculpting in space. And it's done mostly using bamboo and some eucalyptus for the posts. Eucalyptus trees yan, yung gamit namin dun sa mga poste. Ayan. So this is a close-up shot of one of the tentacles. Ayan. So again, napakasaya nung ginagawa namin to kasi lagi ako nasa tubig, kahit na di ganun kaklaro yung tubig. Pero kailangan mong maglagay ng poste sa tubig. Yun. Tapos naka-swimming trunks lang kayo habang gumagawa. Ito naman mga sketch, no? Mga concept art na ginawa ko kasi nung 2016 inimbita ako para maging head designer ng Bagani, yung fantaserye ng ABS-CBN. So ito, so nag-assemble ako ng team. Primarily ako gumawa ng mga concept art. Tapos I supervised the construction din of the first set, yung mga magandang sets. Ito, this is an example of yung kanina yung sketch, tapos ito yung actual set, no? So makikita niyo yung process kung paano nabuo. Tapos sa sand dunes ulit kami gumawa nito. Nagtrabaho nito. So, nung bata kasi ako, ang hilig ko manood ng mga movie magic. Yung kung pinapakita nila kung paano nila ginagawa yung movie magic. Yung mga special effects, yung mga sets, paano nila pino-construct, yung mga scale model. So, this is an example of me being able to apply my training in fine arts to other platforms. So in this case, production design for TV or film. Kung tutuusin, we're using the same design languages, the visual language. Iba lang yung medium or platform. Ayan, these are just different shots of the set. Ito medyo, itong picture na to medyo kawawa na yung set. Medyo nagamit na yata to. So again, the next lang tayo ng images. Ito naman, same. I started with like, rough sketches. Ito naman, ang ginawa namin dito, fishing village. Yung kanina, desert village yun. Ito naman ay fishing village. So lahat sila, ganon, gawa sa bamboo, tapos on stilts. So this was the initial sketch that I did. And then we did the site check. Hindi ko pa nakikita yung location na iniisip nila para dito. So nag-site check kami, which should come up now. It's the next image. You'll notice that the structures resemble sea creatures, no? Parang they're fish-like. Yan. Ayan siya. Yan, tayo natin. Okay, medyo lumagpas na tayo. Pero, ito na yung yung actual set, yan, bandang gitna. Nakikita nyo ba? Tapos yung mga nasa tabi niya, mga na yan, sample pa lang yan ng CGI extensions. Mga computer-generated images na tong mga nasa dulo. Yung nasa gitna, yung actual set. So gumawa kami ng actual set. Tapos, this is just a sample rendering. Ito rin, yung desert village, may mga extensions na, mga digital CGI na yung mga nasa likod-likod. So, with production design, you actually work with a lot of different people with different skills and specialties. So, ito naman, yung set dito, yung nasa bandang gitna. Tapos, siyempre, pinalaki na lang nila. Yan, yung mga gilid-gilid. Pati yung sa dulo. Pero ito, sample rendering pa lang to. Ito yung mga pina-approve pa lang nila sa akin. Tapos, mas maayos na yung final. Yung nagawa nilang yung ginamit sa pilot. Ito, this is one of the sets then that we did. Ito, yan. These are actual structures yung nakikita nyo dyan. Yung dinagdag nila dito ay yung nasa likod. Yung mga rice fields. Rice paddies. Sige, next na lang tayo. Alright, I think patapos na rin naman tayo. Medyo mukhang pare-pareho na naman yata yung papakita ko. Lian, we can actually just, talk while Mary Joy is, showing the images.
Okay. Sir, sure, sir. Actually, sir, during the course of your presentation, sir, we've received a lot of questions from our broadcast audience, sir. Sir, are you ready to answer these questions, sir?
No, I'm not.
Nevertheless, sir. Sir, we'll start with a question from the Director of the FEU Culture and Arts Office, from Director Martin Lopez. Sir, it's a question related to your bamboo structure. Can similar bamboo sculptures be created in mangroves?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in mangrove environments, I think it's very possible. I mean, it's the same principle behind mangrove structures, the mangrove trees themselves. Um, if I understood the question correctly, if you want to build a similar structure over a mangrove environment, I think I've seen it done before. You know, you elevated walkways, and then it's just a matter of um, making these elevated structures a bit more distinct. But I think it's a very nice idea because mangrove environments are very, I don't know, soothing environments. You know, when you're there, it's just, I don't know, you're just surrounded by nature, and just the sight of trees floating over water, you know, elevated, just a few short spaces above the water. Ang ganda niya eh.
Yes,
So that might be a future project that I have.
You got an idea from our audience, Papu, sir. Okay, sir. Let's proceed to another question from our broadcast audience, sir. From Mr. Uh, Justin Clarence Miano. How do modern artists incorporate or apply sustainable practices to their work, sir? Sir, I think he is pertaining to your experience here, sir.
I'm sayang I didn't get to show you my other works that directly deal with sustainability. Um, but I was able to show you the floating island project where I work with Julia Nebrija, who's an urban planner and designer who consults for the MMD. She used to consult for the MMDA and was part of the MMDA for a short while. Um, and it was part of our projects. One of our projects were the Arts for Urban Change along the Pasig River. Um, we managed to paint, and it's ongoing now. This project, we painted like 9 to 10 um, pump flood stations. Those weird structures that you would see along the Pasig River that control the levels of the water. So you'll notice that if you live near the Pasig River or you go past it, you'll see some of those flood stations, pumping stations painted over. So I mean, it's not directly related to the rehabilitation. I mean, the actual physical rehabilitation of the Pasig River ecosystem, but it's one way we can harness art and design to draw the attention towards this body of water that has long been neglected by the city. And yeah, so that's one. I love being able to work with people who are experts in urban design, environmental studies and concerns. Um, right now, I've been using a lot of surplus materials, you know, the discarded objects, plastic bottles, and slowly teaching myself the benefits and the merits of urban farming. Um, so somehow in the future, I would want my bamboo structures to actually be green structures as well. Um, so the bamboo structures will end up becoming playgrounds for plants, maybe for sustainable greenery, for plants that are also food. You know, will produce food. So you know, I intend to marry those things in the future.
Oh, okay, sir. Sir, a follow-up question, sir. In your opinion, sir, what defines a great artist?
Ah, well, for I guess the the creatives that I look up to always end up being able to traverse different creative industries, or they're able to like combine different creative disciplines and social concerns into their work. Um, I'm right now I'm very much fascinated with the question of how art and design can help transform our society for the better. How art and design can directly provide solutions to pressing, urgent concerns of our urban environment or our ecological and environments and social concerns as well. So these are the kinds of works and artists that I'm interested in now. Artists who are able to actively help transform their communities for the better.
Okay, I understand, sir. Uh, Sir, how do you deal with artists' blocks? So in writers, they have a writer's blocks. But in your position, sir, I think, how do you deal with artists' blocks, and where do you get these inspirations to your artworks, to these concepts that are extremely or beyond the reality, sir?
Writer's block, artist's block. Let me put it this way, no. I trained to be creative on command, to be inspired on command. This is I studied to art. I went to art school. I live and breathe this work that I do. And my one of my professors said something that really stuck with me. You should be inspired on command. You can't afford to be, I don't know, to wait for your inspiration or muse. I mean, that's kind of a luxury in a way. Kasi he told us one story one time that he was a teacher. He taught art students. So whenever he needed to do his art, he needed to do it when he could. So, he couldn't afford to wait for inspiration or or wait for the right mood. In a way that athletes train their body to be very skillful, artists and creatives train their minds to be able to be inspired when they need to be inspired. They look at something and see the potential in it almost immediately. Of course, you're allowed to like have like a dry spell every now and then, but but when you compare it to like any other profession, so whenever he needed to do his art, he needed to do it when he could. So, he couldn't afford to wait for inspiration or wait for the right mood. In a way that athletes train their body to be very skillful, artists and creatives train their minds to be able to be inspired when they need to be inspired. They look at something and see the potential in it almost immediately. Of course, you're allowed to like have like a dry spell every now and then, but but when you compare it to like any other profession, it's a discipline, it's a skill, it's a muscle that you train.
Okay, sir. So I think many of our audiences really, sir, are really inspired with your discussion today, sir. So we are still receiving questions from our audiences, sir. Sir, another question is from a professor in the Institute of Architecture and Fine Arts. It's from Mr. Professor Esteban. Good afternoon, Mr. Leroy. I appreciate your creative works. Based from your artworks shown, I noticed that you used a lot of combination of surrealism and deconstructivism. My question is, what inspirational advice can you say to our student artists in terms of developing their visualization skills? Thank you for sharing your creative works to the FEU community.
Thank you too. Um, Actually, I've arrived at my sensibility for form, my preferences for images and form, just quite organically. You respond to what feels good, what you like. Because when we're kids, when I mean, I still draw back to my early years. What struck me when I was a child. And again, I would always gravitate towards these imagined worlds represented in television, in film, in graphic novels, because my sources for art were limited back then. Unlike now that there's internet, you can just like go through your phone and type a hashtag, and you can see all sorts of references to that particular style of art or design. But back then, our sources were limited. I had to really be, I don't know, persistent in looking for sources of inspiration that would, become the foundation of my sensibilities for form. At that time, I had, a few comic books, those interesting sci-fi fantasy films that would show on TV. Um, those card games with very cool illustrations, illustrated books. Because back at that time, I didn't have access to contemporary art books. So okay na rin for me that these were my sources because these original sources informed me to do different things there. When you combine different sources of inspiration and not just from art, parang some would say when you're an artist and you draw inspiration from art, it's a bit incestuous. Parang you're just I know within no a bubble. So the most interesting works for me are like I mentioned before are the works that are able to combine all these different principles from different creative industries. You know, like this fashion designer who was able to combine architectural concerns with his um, construction of dresses or bioscience with sculpture, all these things, you know.
Okay, sir. So I think I hope that we answered these questions from our broadcast audiences, sir. Sir, pahabol na question, sir. And I think that would be our last question for today's discussion.
Favorite color na lang.
Sir. Sir, what do you think is the hardest part of your job, and what do you normally do whenever you experience it, sir?
Hardest part of my job. Hmm. Uh, huh. I I do so many different things that I guess um well, first of all, you I went into this type of work knowing that it was not going to be comfortable or easy. Um, so you really have to be persistent, no? You really have to be a hustler, persistent. You really have to educate yourself because this was not meant to be. I knew coming in this wasn't meant to be a glamorous job. There's it never gets easier. You always want to do something harder. Like after you've done something, what's next? What's the next challenge? I mean that in my case that's how that's how I think, diba? Like I showed you with my works. Like I would start from a small sculptural object, and then I would think about how I can apply this on the human body, how I can make it, grand in terms of scale, how I can make it architectural. So it's really about confronting these new creative problems. That's kind of part of the work that I do. I don't gravitate towards what's easy and what's comfortable. Um, because I guess it's not challenging already, for me. But different artists have different concerns. There's no problem with artists mastering one particular skill as well. So it's really just a preference or what you're inclined to do. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So indeed, really, you have to expect that in everyone's profession there will always be challenges, and you have to be prepared for
Yeah.
that. Yes. Okay, sir.
Very good.
Sir, I think looks like we have exhausted all the questions in our discussion in our broadcast audiences, sir. But before we end the program, is there anything else you want to impart to our fresh graduate students who want to be in the same position as with you in the next years, who wants to pursue this degree? What can you impart to them, sir?
I guess to respond to that question, maybe there are more interesting positions than my position right now. No, kasi these recent technological advancements have opened up new worlds that I am not privy to. I'm not an expert in. Like digital space, multimedia, interactive technologies. So ang daming pwedeng pasukin ng mga artists and designers natin ngayon. Don't model the practice that you want on anyone who's working right now. Kasi you never know what's gonna open up in the future. Like ako, I have a hard time declaring favorites kasi alam ko na nagbabago lagi utak ng tao at nagbabago, you grow, your preferences change, and you just really have to prepare yourself whenever these opportunities come your way. You just have to make yourself knowledgeable and skillful with the basic skills that you need to be able to adapt. But most of all, be open and always take these opportunities when they come at you. Kasi isang tinuro din namin ng prof namin, oo lang kayo ng oo, saka nyo na pag-aralan. Ganon. Just do it kasi that's the best way to learn when you're actually doing it and working with other people who are experts in their own field. Those are the most effective and best ways to learn and to further educate yourself by surrounding yourself with people who can teach you new things. Yeah.
Right, sir. Sir, again, I want to thank you, sir, for being with us today, for imparting all of for your journey to our students and our faculty, sir, to our audiences. I hope, sir, you enjoyed sharing your experiences with us as well.
Sana ang process.
Okay.
Hirap pala mag-project.
Okay. So for everyone, thank you so much for your participation. I hope that you all learned that the key to success is to adventuring all the possibilities that come to your way, and to always seize the moment when fate gives it to you. Sir, so with that being said, sir, thank you everyone. I hope that you all join us again for our next Compass activity. Thank you very much again, Sir Leeroy, and have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Thank you for having me.